Welcome to the Creative AI Show. What do we have this week, Bryon?
Hey Rosh, happy to be here as always. We are two creative guys talking AI. And guess what, Rosh, this week, instead of just talking to my tiny little webcam thing right up there, I talked to an audience full of real people. At least I can confirm most of them I thought were real. There weren't any droids in the mix there or anything,
Looking
but
forward to it, but you never know. One could be
yeah,
hiding in there. It happens
precisely.
sometimes.
Right. But yeah, I talked to AI and social media, and I want to go over a little bit of some of the FAQs that I got, some of the aha moments, stuff like that. It's getting pretty exciting doing these talks as more and more people are adopting this technology. So it's really fun there. And then also, we've got another rocket ship YouTube video right now doing well on Midjourney. I put it up yesterday. It's already, competing with some of our better videos. And I want to talk about just how good Midjourney version 7 is
Hmm.
and how it's able to solve a big, big problem for some of us AI content creators.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited to chat about that. What do you have going on?
So there are two videos this week that really dealt with the same thing, launch update, which I think is important, and that has to
Hmm.
do with reference images. We'll get into
Yes.
that when we talk about it, but two platforms dropped something for us this week, and we can do a little bit of a comparison to see which
Hmm.
was better, where the strengths, where the weaknesses. So I'd like to have a good conversation with you about that, and then I want to talk about over the weekend. I had an interesting experience with the AI doing something that it really had not done before unless asked to. And this was interesting. It really added kind of a little future glimpse into what is coming
Mm,
and was ultimately very helpful. So I want
okay.
to share that and maybe it'll happen for our listeners too in the future. So and how to go about it.
Yes, well, very exciting. Cool. So, yeah, I'll dive right in here. I did a speaking event for a continuing education for realtors, and this is, real estate is a very, very competitive world as far
Yeah.
as marketing and stuff. And it was great to see the aha moments, the light bulbs go off when talking about AI strategies, talking about social media strategies, and the ways that they can differentiate themselves in this space by using AI. And one of the things that I was really impressed with is the quantity of people now in that room that are using, at least Chat GPT or Gemini or some sort of LLM.
Right.
When I started doing these chats back in 2023, it was maybe 10 to 15% of the room, and now I want to say it was like 80% of the room. They're understanding the power of this technology, but at the same time, how it can be a bit of a double-edged sword. So, one of them asked a really great question. They were like, "Hey, if all this information is available just by asking questions, what's to stop more people from doing, for sale by owner
Right.
and using a realtor?" And I was honest with them. I was like, nothing,
No.
this is why you need to be that much better and up your game in order to make sure that you're keeping up because, you have to assume that all of your competition is using AI. And
Right.
whether that's, content creation, creative ideas, an email drip campaign, like I alluded to before, all of these things are getting easier to do. So if you're not at least doing the minimum, you're definitely falling behind.
It's true. I mean, as we often talk about, Google's been around solidly, well, over 25, but say 25 years,
Hmm.
and you've always been able to Google everything. In YouTube, I mean, if you want to fix something, you want to do something, you want to learn how to sell your own house, all the information is there. It's just
Yeah,
now easier. It's all
right,
in one spot versus you having to go search for it. It comes to you. And
right.
you have the ability to do everything. But the thing is, as a realtor, you have the knowledge of the right questions to ask.
Right,
And
exactly.
now
And
you
that's what,
have a platform that can help you take your business to another level, whether you're a creative or a traditional business person or a real estate agent, whatever it is. You have,
yeah,
again, we've talked about this for a few years now. It's about the questions. And so
yeah,
if you have better questions because you've been trained in that area, you're going to
right.
do a better job.
Yeah, and that's what I kept imparting to them. It's like, yeah, you could do a Google research or you can find a YouTube video, but where are you going to have a back and forth conversation with somebody about, hey, what's working, what isn't, getting those suggestions back? So outside of hiring your own personal marketing expert, now everyone's got one of these in these LLMs. And then, quick sidebar, one of the technologies that they were most interested in learning more about is the great app Captions AI.
Yeah.
So the Captions app, you can upload a put in a YouTube URL of a longer video and get quick little shorts from it. Or the primary function of the app is those dynamic captions that show up on the bottom. So, if you are a realtor that's out there and you want to do a quick video, you could just take that extra step and use this app and get those dynamic captions. And, 80% of the people on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube Shorts, they're listening without volume. So, just showing them a quick 5-minute tutorial of how to do that was really, really eye-opening to them. So just showing just how many different programs there are, different directions that we can go. So, altogether, yeah, pretty exciting.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah.
So,
All right, well,
we're
throw it back
talking
your way.
about image references, and we both did a video because two different platforms dropped an upgrade related to it. And for you, it was Midjourney, and for me, it was Runway. And there are other platforms that have variations of this, but this is
Right.
so important. And to compare this, and we probably should do a few videos down the road comparing the different ones straight up,
Hmm.
because to create a story, which is what we're trying to do quite often with video, it's so
Hmm.
important to have a really good image and then that consistent character
Right.
throughout those images. And it really is like basically the boards. I mean, just laying it out with here's image one, the intro, image two, the character or hero does this. Image three, here comes the villain. And
Hmm.
but be able to take that all the way through and having good character reference systems is really going to win the day, I think, for many of the AI platforms. What do you think? And what do you see with Midjourney?
All right, yeah, so 100%. I've, back to the days where I maybe only used Grok or ChatGPT to create images, I would put the same prompt in and get just completely different answers and different characters and different
Right.
things when you're describing a person the exact same way. It's kind of, which way the wind's blowing, which way, what kind of mood the LLM is in when it's creating its, images there. But a big step towards this was when Leonardo, and I did a video on our page maybe about a month ago called
Right.
Consistent Characters, where I talked
Yeah.
about Leonardo. And what you get to do is you can upload an image and
Yep.
then you can select low, mid, or high for the character reference.
Yeah.
And then
Right.
you're able to, put it out there. So, of course, I always select high. I want this character reference to be accurate. And, it did good. I would put it in that like 70% world. Maybe some of the facial characteristics, maybe facial hair or the shape of the face, eyes, nose, stuff like that. A little bit different from image to image. Certainly the outfit that they were wearing had a lot of variety in the
Yeah.
outputs. And if you're telling a consistent story about this character and all of a sudden they don't have sleeves on one scene and then the next scene they do, or all of a sudden they added a cape for some reason,
Right.
that could be very frustrating to where you're like, feel like you're kind of not getting anywhere. You're spinning your wheels.
Yeah.
And so this was the first time where I uploaded an image. I did that great samurai one that I've used in a few videos. It's got this cool looking bent sword and a very distinct futuristic looking samurai outfit. And I uploaded it. And now one thing to keep in mind with Midjourney, now this is Midjourney V7, so version
Right.
7 that just came out.
Right.
Big advances with this. Is it has a reference guide. So it's kind of how creative it wants to get with your upload and your prompt,
Yeah.
where it's a scale of 0 to 1,000.
Wow.
And
It
the
couldn't just be
default,
1 to 10.
right, I know, right. And the default is at 100.
Okay.
And so I played around with it. I did some at 0, and it was, to be honest, it was kind of boring, the output I got.
Yeah.
100 was kind of the sweet spot to where it obeyed the character that I uploaded. And it still kept some of the things from the image that I uploaded. So say the one that I uploaded, the character was in like an alleyway. So, like from the perspective of two parallel lines, how they kind of meet at the end of the image.
All right.
And, the images that it created from there, most of those had some sort of an allusion, to that. But when I upped the creativity, say to 500 or 1,000, it would really play with the backgrounds and go further into the prompt and, let the actual AI use its creativity.
Mm-hmm.
But we would start to deviate from that original character.
Ah.
So, some of them showed the back of the character and again with a cape, or, one of the scenes at the end of the video was in a desert and it made the character look like it had the clothing from like the movie Dune. So,
Okay.
a lot of loose fitting clothing and, it fits the scene of, a desert and everything. But it's not that accurate to the original character that I uploaded. So when I put that back down to 100, asked for the same, kind of prompt from it, it brought that character back to where, if Leonardo was doing it at 70%, this is now at 95%.
Nice,
So it
nice.
was
Now
a
this is
huge
with
step.
text prompt only, right?
Yes, correct.
Yeah,
So yeah, there wasn't any, add in additional scene and add them together.
right.
And ChatGPT is really great to give me some prompts in the examples of this. So all sorts of different worlds and scenes.
Yes.
But I did a pretty basic one where I took this samurai and kind of put him completely out of context and said, "Hey, put him in the middle of a farm riding a horse."
Yeah.
And so it's kind of out of context, but it was beautiful. I mean, the
Nice.
the actual the photorealism was great. The uniform that this samurai was wearing was great. But then also I gave it that subtle test of the horse. And we all
Yeah.
know drawing a horse or recreating it is one of those kind of really difficult ones, almost like getting hands right and stuff. And I mean, the photorealism was great. I can tell the aperture was set very low on the camera. It was really focused in the forefront, but the horse was a little bit set behind him and a little bit blurry. And it really, kind of played with the, photorealism in a really, really nice way. And I just kept thinking over and over again how great each of these separate scenes would be. Say if I'm telling a story about this character that went on, an epic journey and,
Yeah.
that did all sorts of different things, but the character itself is at least 95%. If there was 6 lines across, in the chest plate, maybe one of them only had like 5 lines. Little
Sure.
subtle differences that
But
if
in
you're
in the long term and in the future, that will make a difference, and it will have to hold. But this is getting pretty good,
right.
and yeah, and go ahead.
Unless somebody's pausing scene by scene and like comparing left and right of these, details, they're not going to catch these little subtle things.
Right, right. Yeah, I think Runway really, we've been kind of downplaying Runway lately. We haven't
Yeah.
been, we were really up on it because it really made some nice strides and we were using it a
Hmm.
lot. And then we kind of faded away, especially when they started charging, $70 for their image creator, and there's
Right.
plenty of good ones out there. But the new system, it's kind of like Pika in the sense of you can add multiple images. I believe Pika's 4 that you can
Yep.
add to combine together in one scene. And it actually does a really good job. I mean, the output isn't always as strong as some of the other platforms, but Runway, it gives you 3. But the thing is, you can only really use 2. You can
You don't
use
make it work too hard, right?
yeah, yeah. You use the here's your character and here's the background and it'll put in the background and it give you a few variations, give you 4 variations of that. And that's great. Uh, I tried to use the third one. I tried to add a knight because I had, I often do the model with the
Hmm.
dress and then gloves and all that, So that's what I had, and I put her in a background, I think a Roman background, and then I had a
Yes.
a knight from the medieval times, and then put the knight in there, and there was no knight. And
Hmm.
so I
It's
tried
kind
it
of
again.
picking and choosing,
Yeah,
right?
no night, just the first one. And so I couldn't add anything else in there very well. So they're saying that they're working on that and that is coming. So that third spot will be usable. So down the road, that knight can be holding a lightsaber, and it'll be great. But
Hmm.
this is the future of it. I mean, this
Yeah.
is how we're going to create uh, video, commercials, social media, telling stories, and getting good at that, having the eye to decide which of the images is the right image and which is the
Right.
image that's going to help continue that story. I mean, that's where the creative AI director is going to come into play and
Right.
and be that specialist to understand which AI, and I think you've mentioned this many times, which AI is the right tool for the next action.
For the vision of it, yeah. And so when
Yes.
you're the director, now kind of the foundation of your story is getting the right images.
Yeah.
Now, how are we going to animate these images in such a way that they're believable? They as we've joked, they pass the S test
Yes.
and they get through there. That they look good, they look legit. The goal of using AI is to fool people that you didn't use AI, essentially.
Right.
And but there's different tools for different things. Like we've gone in our videos and dissected, Kling versus Runway versus Pika, and where Kling is really good at animating the character within the scene of doing different things, whereas say Runway, you've got the mode where you're kind of more directing the cameraman and you're
Right.
panning and zooming and making the scene extend in that kind of way. So, it might be a little column A, column B, column C as you're putting together your creative work. But that's what we're here to do, is to let people know the differentiation between these tools and when, and to, be able to learn when to use them and when not.
Yeah. Very good. You have something up
Yeah, I
next?
had one last interaction. I was filming on site with a golf client, and he told me about, hey, I can only do a certain number of lessons in a day, but if I'm on YouTube and telling these, different things, my reach, my impact can be so much more.
Yeah.
And that I naturally just said, hey, check out our channel. And this was, not trying to brag or anything, but this is what we're talking about. And I directed him right to my video I did on captions, where I did a
Yeah.
quick how to create these dynamic captions. And he's like, man, this has been my struggle. I see these on the videos on, on Instagram or Facebook or YouTube Shorts. And I want to know how to be able to do that without spending hours editing and trying to get titles just right. And as long as he's speaking clearly, captions is so good at understanding what people say that I'm
Excellent.
rarely making edits unless it's something that's a particular name spelled incorrectly.
Sure.
But for the most part, it's nailing it, even to where I'm uploading music to where things are sung. And, a computer
Yeah.
listening to a word that maybe has some extra inflections and notes and stuff,
Sure.
that's can be more challenging than say somebody speaking like me right now. And it's nailing all of that, within again 90-95% of it. So we're really
Nice.
getting there as these updates happen and these different AI apps. But one of the advices that I always kind of give is that when we are trying to submit something, say to a high-end client or for something for your business, try your best to not make the AI do too much work. Get it as far as possible and then let the AI do its magic.
Yeah.
And it's not going to struggle so much. One of the examples I had with this is there's an AI technology that, say somebody's reading a script on a screen and you can see their eyes darting back and forth,
Right.
that it focuses that eye contact. But if your character, if your person that you're interviewing is the kind of person who has a lot of, kind of mannerisms where they move like this, there's only so much that AI is going to be able to fix and make it look legit. So you
Mm.
got to not make it work too hard.
Yeah. All right. Hey, so one last thing, and that was my interaction over the weekend with the AI,
Okay,
which I
yes, yeah,
really thought was kind of the future of what's coming our
right,
way. And that was I was in the circle of death with the AI. And if you've ever
mhm,
tried to code or do something with the AI, sometimes they get into this circle and just don't fix the problem.
right.
And I finally just said, forget it. This is not going to work, and let's move on, or I'm going to try something else. Who knows? I was probably threatening. And the
Right.
AI actually followed up and said, hold on, wait a minute. Let's take a moment and reset. And that was something that really had not happened before.
Right.
You might get a, oh, I'm sorry, I can't help you. Or it would just try and usually it would just try and do it again and it
Right.
would fail. You know, but this one
And
was like,
you were using ChatGPT o3 for this, right?
oh, 03. Great.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So this is their highest level
Hmm.
AI. And even this one hallucinates. This one even gets
Hmm.
things wrong. But it is, when it gets it right, it's so deep and so good. I mean, I
Right.
really do like it for that. There just needs to be some upgrades and some adjustments. But to have this kind of a relationship where the computer comes to me and says, "Hold on.
Yeah.
What is it that I'm getting wrong? Let
Right.
me reset. Let me clear my cache. Let me clear it all and just start anew. I'm missing something. I obviously got in a loop. And just give me one more chance." And
Like a
and it
pretty
did.
good employee, right? I
Yeah,
mean, it
yeah.
messes up, but it wants to do better.
Exactly. And then I said, well, I just want this and this. That's it.
Hmm.
Okay. And it went through and it did it perfect.
Wow,
So
that's
it
refreshing.
really, It
Yeah.
really reset. It really reached out in a way that it never reached out before. This is a future insight of what we're going to have. We're going to
Right.
have these kinds of interactions on a regular basis. I was talking with a friend who's a psychologist just the other day. Were having breakfast, and she knew, she was very connected, knew that hey, some of this is coming our way, that these people are, and we've talked about this, how sometimes the AIs do a really good job and are starting to sense our patterns and what we
Right.
really need. And maybe that was just the AI sensing that this happened before, and the only way to fix it was to stop and reset. And maybe that was a pattern. Maybe because it noticed at a certain point I said, forget it. I said these words, and then I clicked new. New, because that's quite often how you do it. Just a new
Yeah.
chat, start all over, clear those tokens out, and let's start fresh and anew. And
Right.
so I think it's working. It's pretty
Nice.
impressive. Have you had any
Well,
experiences like that?
oh yeah. Well, I've had experiences where it
Yeah,
dragged
yeah,
along
we
for a
do
little
know, we know
while.
about the
But
emails
what's
and
funny is I got a
building a
video
bridge
from
for
my
you.
brother-in-law from of somebody saying the exact same thing. Now it was trying to generate an image, and it
Oh.
said, "Hey, it would normally, with chat, and this was Chat GPT, and the name of his video was the exact same as mine. It's Chat GPT lied to me, and it tried to generate, he was making a bunch of images, and then all of a sudden it hit like a stopping point. And it's like, hey, give me 5 minutes to make this image. I'll get right back to you." And he's like, okay, that's kind of weird. I've never gotten that answer before.
Yeah, right.
So, it set a timer, set a timer, and it said, yeah, it's been 5 minutes. How you doing? He's like, oh, I'm 95% done. I'm almost there. We're working on it. Get back to me in 2 minutes. And this went back and forth for like an hour. And he finally asked it, like, hey, do you have the availability of getting back with me or doing, things behind the scenes? And then it actually said, hey, I'm going to prioritize this over other people's image generations to make
Oh
sure
my
this happens.
goodness.
And then he came back and said, hey, is this something you can do? And then it finally was like, nah, you got me. I was lying to you the whole time. So there's definitely some funnier things going on and some back and forth. And, to allude, I was in a 2 week back and forth of it
Yes.
constantly promising me that, hey, I'm designing this app for you. I'm using this program. These are the issues that I had. And, give me some more time. Give me some more time. And, yeah, so it's really it's
That's not
becoming
happened to me. I've not faced that,
yeah,
and I'm just really curious when that might happen. But
right,
it is a glimpse into the world of, hey, we're going to have these relationships,
right.
and we'll know when to trust and when not to. But
Yeah,
ultimately, it's going to see the patterns. It's going to understand us well, and hopefully, it helps us be better at
right.
who we are and what we do. At least
Yeah.
that's the goal. So.
That's the optimistic side of things. That's why we do what we do here on this show, this channel. So yeah, we're just trying to keep people informed as to all the different divergent directions of it and just how real it's becoming because now it's turning into an okay employee.
Yeah,
So yeah,
right. Go.
interesting.
So, very good. You've been listening
Yes.
to two creative guys talking AI. Hey, we'll
We'll
talk to you
talk to you
next
next
week.
week. Yeah,
Yeah.
see you guys. Thank you.